Welcome back to Violent Origins, where we uncover the split-second disasters that almost wiped our entire bloodline from the ledger of life. Close your eyes, then breathe in brittle air. An air so thin and cold it scorches your lungs like dry ice. It is 900,000 years ago. The sun crawls across a pewter sky, glaciers loom on every horizon, and the last ember of humanity flickers inside barely 1,300 chests. That is fewer people than fit in a single city subway car today. If even one clan coughs itself to death, you, me, and every newborn hope vanish with them. It began when Earth's heartbeat slowed. The Mid Pleistocene Transition thickened ice sheets and stretched winters from 41,000-year pulses to 100,000-year marathons. Rivers froze solid. Grasslands browned to dust, and rain clouds packed their bags for a vacation that would last millennia. Imagine hunting antelope when the antelope are already bones under snow. Imagine digging roots only to find permafrost sealing the pantry shut. Fire, that glowing miracle we treat like a birthright, was still a rumor swapping tongues around scattered campfires. Some nights it failed entirely, leaving families to curl like stone under aurora-lit skies, while hyenas the size of modern lions prowled the outskirts. Hunger gnawed from the inside. Frost bit from the outside. Saber-toothed silence waited in between. Wow. Did you know our ancestors spent almost 117,000 years with numbers lower than today's snow leopards? Every child was a genetic lifeboat. Every elder a living library whose death felt like lightning striking a hard drive full of survival hacks. Inside those fragile bands, conversation became currency. Thick, furred hunters returned from empty kill zones to share cautionary tales. Which cliffs echoed avalanches, which frozen ponds sang with hairline cracks, which berry skins hid belly-twisting toxins. Mothers hummed lullabies, teaching breath control so infants wouldn't wail and attract predators. Grandfathers traced constellations, mapping seasons that no longer behaved, yet still offered pattern enough to gamble on migration. But food scarcity wasn't the only blade at our throats. Thirst carved its own scars. Glacial dams blocked rivers. Snowmelt flowed underground. Thirsty clans chewed ice and gnawed marrow for moisture, praying not to crack teeth already chipped by grit-filled roots. When water finally surfaced, it came as slush swirling with parasites unseen by naked eyes. A single sip could trigger fevers hot enough to melt precious body fat. And the fat was the bank account you lived on until the next mammoth stumbled into spear range. Fossil gaps scream the same terror. Archaeologists comb rock layers between 1,000,000 and 650,000 years past and find only ghosts. Stone tools without owners, footprints ending mid-stride, campsites abandoned to dunes. Bones simply vanish, as if Earth herself hit backspace on an entire paragraph of human history. The fragments that do appear sport brow ridges and jaw lines halfway between Homo erectus and the later Heidelbergensis, faces forged by hardship into new blueprints better suited for cold, for cooperation, for cunning. The coldest breath arrived around 900,000 years ago, the dreaded 0.9 mega-annum event. Dust veiled the sun, plants shut down photosynthesis, and herbivores shredded their teeth on woody stems once considered famine food. Isotope signatures in antelope molars revealed diet changes so abrupt they read like EKG spikes of ecological panic. Without protein and fat, early humans burned muscle to stay warm, shedding strength they desperately needed to hunt. Under that weight of misery, the census of Homo teetered on the 2 edge of extinction. Yet inside collapsing numbers, sparks of genius ignited. Someone noticed that striking quartzite against iron-rich stone showered brighter sparks than flint alone. Someone else discovered that lining a fire pit with green animal hides trapped heat overnight, stretching embers to the next dawn. Small improvements snowballed into survival revolutions. Wow, did you know the first semi-permanent shelters may have been dug not for comfort, but to keep fragile newborns from freezing to death before their first cry? Those shallow pits, braced with mammoth bones and roofed with woven grass, pushed infant mortality down just enough for the population curve to level instead of nosedive. But nothing came free. Building a windbreak cost calories. Guarding a fire cost sleep. Chasing dwindling herds cost precious body heat. Decisions were life or death math problems solved without numbers. Is the woolly rhinoceros worth a 6-day trek across black ice rivers? Is sharing water with a rival band safer than fighting and losing 2 hunters to injury? Each choice rewired instincts, reinforcing the neural circuits that still nudge us toward empathy or violence when resources run thin. The night before everything changed, a sliver moon hung like a cracked tusk. In one cramped cave, a child practiced flint on stone until a single golden spark landed on dry cattail fluff. Flame blossomed, tiny yet determined. Elders leaned in, eyes shining with reflected fire and something rarer, belief that tomorrow might not murder them in their sleep. Hold your breath. The pivotal breakthrough is coming. If that spark catches on, if fire becomes more than accident, our fragile lineage may inch back from oblivion. If it fails, the last human story ends in frozen ash. The spark caught. Cattail fluff flared, wood hissed, and for the first time in weeks the cave walls glowed amber instead of icy gray. Heat seeped into numb fingers, melting hopelessness into possibility. By dawn, that tiny fire had multiplied across neighboring shelters like gossip on the wind. Flame became a traveling teacher. It roasted marrow, hardened spear points, smoked hides into waterproof cloaks, and, most importantly, stretched usable daylight deep into the dark. Under firelight, hunters compared tracks, artisans swapped tool hacks, and children absorbed survival algebra encoded in lullabies. Wow. Did you know that regular fire use supercharged human sleep? The glow pushed predators back and shortened nightly fear vigil, so our ancestors could afford deeper REM cycles, fuel that turbocharges memory and creativity. Better dreams meant better plans, and better plans meant fewer funerals. With calories banked from cooked meat and brains sharpened by rest, early humans dared bigger moves. Ice-locked rivers exposed raw seabeds, forming dusty superhighways out of Africa. Bands packed embers in hollow horns, stepped onto the new land bridges, and entered Eurasia's frigid amphitheater. The journeys were brutal. Faces split by windburn, tendons screaming on endless slopes. But every campfire claimed new territory for the species. Where mammoths grazed, people followed. Where glaciers blocked paths, tunnels of spruce and willow offered detours known only to those who watched how elk skirted crevasses. Carrying capacity rose in lockstep with ingenuity. Stone knappers invented the soft hammer technique, knocking off thinner, sharper blades that made butchery faster and hideworking easier. Tailors stitched sinew thread through pelts, crafting parkas that trapped body heat so efficiently a hunter could sleep on snow and wake with fingers intact. Social bonds thickened too. Clans intermarried, trading bloodlines like peace treaties that diversified the shrinking gene pool. Every newborn carried a shuffled deck of survival traits, stronger lungs for thin air, broader hips for safer births, nimble digits for precision flaking. But the world pushed back. Saber-toothed cats, giant hyenas, and short-faced bears competed for the same dwindling prey. Confrontation was inevitable. Spears tipped with fire-hardened wood flashed in torchlight. Predators tested, retreated, circled. Some nights fur and flesh tore. Other nights both sides limped away to suffer frostbite in separate shadows. The arms race escalated until predators that couldn't adapt simply faded from the record, leaving tooth-scarred bones in caves and legends in human songs. Meanwhile, the climate's iron fist loosened its grip, if only fractionally. Glacial walls retreated enough to uncover valleys strewn with summer berries, slopes where reindeer and bison fattened. Population curves finally tilted upward. Census estimates jumped from a scant 1,000 to tens of thousands, then hundreds, over the next 40,000 years. A rebound so steep it would make modern demographers gasp. Wow, did you know that by 83,000 years ago, archaic humans had ballooned more than 2,000% from their bottleneck low? Statistically, that's like watching every person in your town invite 20 new relatives to dinner. Relatives who all know how to hunt, sing, and start a fire in the rain. The genetic trim had side effects. With so few founders, certain mutations became universal. One tweaked the melanocortin pathway, lightening skin tones in groups that ventured north, trading sun protection for vitamin D synthesis under weak winter light. Another refined the FOXP2 gene, smoothing neural circuits for complex speech. Clearer language meant faster knowledge transfer, whether teaching spear thrust angles or recounting migration routes carved in the stars. Even anatomy shifted. Whites of the eyes grew brighter, making gaze direction obvious in low firelight. Cooperation thrived when you could silently warn a companion of a stalking cat with just a sideways glance. Facial muscles gained subtlety, birthing micro-expressions to negotiate trust long before the first handshake. Not every group thrived. Many disappeared beneath advancing ice or vanished into genetic cul-de-sacs, their stories known only by pollen dust and tool shards. But the survivors etched resilience into DNA, culture, and myth. Fire ceremonies commemorated clans lost to storms. Ritual scars mapped victories against beasts twice a hunter's weight. Memory became infrastructure more durable than bone. Then, almost abruptly, the cold eased. Grasslands greened, rivers swelled, and human footprints branched like capillaries across 3 continents. The once anemic gene pool blossomed with new alleles generated by mutation, migration, and serendipitous love stories beside smoky hearths. The species that could have vanished with one unlucky avalanche now numbered in the hundreds of thousands, poised to invent needle-eyed sewing, boned harpoons, and eventually obsidian scalpels sharp enough to slice molecules of fear itself. Fast forward to the present. You scroll through an endless buffet of entertainment, climate-controlled and well-lit. Yet, inside your chest beats the metronome of ancestors who counted time by glacial pulses and marked distance in blistered footsteps. Their legacy is the neural hardware that lets you empathize with strangers. The vocal cords tuned for opera or protest, the restless spark that sends probes to Mars instead of driftwood into cave walls. Wow, did you know that when you warm your hands over campfire, you're reenacting the exact ritual that tipped the scales away from extinction 900 millennia ago? Every crackle is a tribute to the unknown child who struck quartzite just right and refused to let the ember die. So what killed all but 1,000 humans? A cocktail of glacial cold, parched savannas, untamed predators, and technology only half invented. What saved them? Curiosity strong enough to chase shadows into frozen valleys, creativity nimble enough to turn sparks into civilization, and cooperation deep enough to share the last scrap of dried meat with a shivering rival. If our ancestors could claw back from statistical non-existence, what excuse do we have for surrender when Wi-Fi drops or deadlines loom? Their blood floods your veins with the proof that setback is simply preparation. The darkest epic birthed the brightest flares of ingenuity. Let that ignite every risk you're afraid to take. Subscribe to Violent Origins for more shocking discoveries from humanity's brutal past.